What's up? Hey, what's good? What's poppin'? I am Miss Berry. Welcome back to my channel. I appreciate you guys for sliding through and coming to kick it with me. As you guys can see from the title, I did a part 1 to this video, very revealing Margaret Sanger interview, must see, about Planned Parenthood. First and foremost, I don't really know anything about Margaret besides what I've already reacted to, and just little stuff here and there. So this is the first time I'm actually hearing her speak on anything or speak about it. A lot of people say that I have the wrong impression, but I'm not siding with anything. I'm just watching, forming my own opinion, and going from there. And that's exactly what's about to happen. So we about to go ahead and get up in part 2 and finish this video up. So let's get what was I about to say? Let's go ahead and get straight up into it. All right. I didn't smash my finger. It's swelling up. Oh, God. All right, let's press play.
Again. So what the motive is?
Well, you won't hazard a guess.
I don't care to. Thank you.
May I ask you why? Now, I know that in private and actually in public discussions, I think, prior to this time, you have been willing to state your understanding of what the motives of the church are, and now you would rather remain silent. May I ask you why?
Well, simply because I don't think that the church has changed in its attitude. Some of the hierarchy have changed their attitude. You can't say the same thing that you might have said a year ago or 2 years ago as to your belief or as to your opinion. Mm-hmm. And when
have you heard it said that the reason that the church is against birth control is because they want more Catholics?
I've read it.
Do you believe it?
Well, if you read their papers, where they point out Boston, that's what has happened in Boston and Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. They have simply outbred the Protestants, and they're in Boston and Massachusetts, they have control. I've read that in their own papers.
I see. Of course, the church's answer, and I read now from a pamphlet published by the Redemptorist Fathers in Missouri, says as follows. It says that point of view about wanting more Catholics is nonsense. Quote, "The Catholic Church does not command Catholic husbands and wives to have even one child. The Church considers it more than normally meritorious for them to have no children if they mutually and perpetually give up the use of the marriage rite for the love of God."
All right. I don't quote what they do. So I think that the question in my mind is that they do and order their own people to do as they wish. But I object to their having the same rules for people who are not the same religion.
Well, they believe, you see, that it is a natural law, not a Catholic law, but a natural law, and therefore a sin not just for Catholics, but a sin for all peoples. And I think that there are other religious groups, the very, very Orthodox Jews feel the same way about birth control. Let's look at another argument against birth control, Mrs. Sanger, published in Red Book magazine in March of 1956. It says birth control is a devastating social force which tends to weaken the moral fiber of the community. Immunity from parenthood encourages promiscuity, particularly when unmarried persons can so easily avail themselves of the devices. Do you doubt that?
I doubt it.
You do?
Certainly.
Then let me read from a news story in the Philadelphia Daily News on June 10th, 1942. The story quotes you as urging the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps to give its members, quote, preventive measures against pregnancy, end quote. And you add, quote, abortion and illegitimacy are bound to result if the government doesn't recognize human nature, end quote. In other words, you were not advocating Christian morality, but rather ways for single women to avoid bearing illegitimate children.
Where was this taken from?
Philadelphia Daily News, June 10, 1942, direct quote from Margaret Sanger.
I doubt it. I don't believe I ever made such a remark.
Well, in the same vein, in your autobiography, which you cannot disavow, you wrote the following about sexologist Havelock Ellis. You said he's been able to clarify the question of sex and free it from the smudginess connected with it from the beginning of Christianity. Now, what do you mean by the smudginess connected with sex, and why do you blame it on Christianity?
Well, There's many reasons, of course, to say that we have more records of it from the dawn of Christianity. And I think I was speaking of Havelock Ellis as having clarified the question of homosexuals, making the thing not exactly a perverted thing, but a thing that a person is born with, different kinds of eyes, different kinds of structure, and so forth. But he didn't make all homosexuals perverts. I felt that he helped clarify that to the medical profession and to the scientists of the world, as perhaps one of the first ones to do that. That was one of the things that I meant in that.
Mrs. Sanger, do you disagree that Catholics, or do you feel that Catholics should not have a right to have a say when a city administration contemplates spending their tax dollars on birth control or the dissemination of birth control information, something that Catholics believe is sinful?
If they have a right to say what they...
Do you feel that they don't have a right to have a say when a city administration contemplates spending their dollars, tax dollars, on birth control? For instance, here in New York, Catholics comprise about 45% of our population. They're the largest single group. Well, don't you think they should have the democratic right to lobby against having their money spent, their tax money spent, for something that they consider evil?
Well, I suppose they have a right. They certainly do it. But so have the others. They're only 45% of the population. That is not the majority.
But they have a right to get up and...
Certainly. I'd have no objection to having them say that, but I think we should have the same right. I say we, I mean non-Catholics.
Well, of course, this is a little bit at variance with something that you told our reporter earlier this week. You said earlier this week, it's not only wrong, it should be made illegal for any religious group to prohibit dissemination of birth control, even among its own members. In other words, you would like to see the government legislate religious belief.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, this was a huge problem within the church, well, with the churches, not agreeing. Again, y'all, I am learning. I am expanding my mind. I don't need y'all in the comments talking about, oh, who are you? I don't want to hear all of that. You can take that negativity to somebody else's channel. Who cares? I'm opening my mind and expanding it to things that I did not know to form my own opinion, as I keep saying. So I hear them mention, talk about the church a lot and the issues within the church, the natural balance. So that's what I'm pretty much curious about. But yeah, let's keep watching.
In a certain sense.
Where these strange things come to, that I said them, is what I should like to know when.
Well, now, you know that my reporter spent a good deal of time with you. He's a very accurate young man.
Yes.
And this is a specific
so am I.
Well, I don't think I said it quite that way.
What are your religious beliefs, Mrs. Sanger? Do you believe in a God in the sense of a divine being who rewards or punishes people after death?
Well, I have a different attitude about the divine. I feel that we have divinity within us, and the more we express the good part of our lives, the more the divine within us expresses itself. I suppose I would call myself an Episcopalian by religion, and there's many other. If you travel around the world, you get quite a bit of the feeling of all religions have so much alike in the divine part of our own being. And I suppose you just couldn't put that in a book, or you couldn't put it into a phrase or a sentence.
Do you believe in sin? When I say believe, I don't mean believe in committing sin. Do you believe there is such a thing as sin?
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be.
I disagree. I strongly disagree with that. Like, I really don't need to hear her reasoning for it, because it's not going to change how I'm viewing it. Like, in my opinion, I disagree. I don't think having kids are a sin. And I'm just trying to figure out what type of human being would think like that. I understand that, certain people have certain illnesses, disease, or whatever that they're not trying to pass on to their kids. At the same time, there's kids being born, without like consent. Like, how can I put this? It's kids being born that comes from rape or this or that. It's stuff happening to where some people might not know that they're carrying this or whatever the case. It's like, it's so many different reasons, but I would never in my life say that kids being born are a sin. Ever. That's just my opinion. That's how I feel, and that's how I will always feel. Even though feelings don't matter in this, but this is my opinion. This is my perspective, and this will stay my perspective. They're not a sin, in my perspective. But I get what she's saying by, kids being this or that. They just don't have sex. I mean, don't do the do. Excuse my language, just don't do the do then.
A human being, practically, delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born. That, to me, is the greatest sin.
Okay, and every child that's born is not going to turn into something like that or act, be a criminal or this or that. Like, are you a criminal, Margaret? Well, were you a criminal? I don't know. Was she a criminal, y'all? Like, I'm just diving a little bit my first time. So I'm not sure, but I'm just trying to figure it out because all of these labels that you putting on unborns, or just because of the things that were going on in the world. Well, it's still going on in this day and age. I just think that it's her opinion, it's her opinion, but I don't agree.
People can commit.
But sin in the ordinary
Might as
sense
well, like,
that
what,
we
just eliminate the
regard it,
whole world? Like, no
do you
kids be
believe or do you
born?
not believe?
Well, what would they be?
Do you believe that infidelity is a sin?
Well, I'm not going to specify what I think is sin. I've stated what I think is the worst sin. The
Yes,
greatest sin.
but then you asked me to say what, and I said what, and you refused to answer me?
Yes, I don't know about infidelity. It has so many personalities to it.
No, infidelity is a sin. Quotes. It's a sin. Like, if you're married, you know what I'm saying? Everybody has their own different religious beliefs. So, there's no judgment there. I have no judgment with anybody believing in whatever they believe. But from my beliefs and what I believe, I apologize about the sirens, y'all. Everything just be so loud. But anyway, what I believe, you know what I'm saying? Infidelity is a sin. Like, if you're married, tied to a person, and you decide to step outside of that, technically it's a what? It's a sin. Infidelity is a sin. Everybody has their own different perspectives and opinions on that, but yeah.
What a person's own belief is. I couldn't generalize any of those things as being sin.
Murder is a sin.
Well, that's naturally a thing. Murder is whether it's a sin or not, it's a terrible act.
In just a moment, Mrs. Sanger, I'd like to ask you about another social problem here in the United States.
I'm sorry I keep pausing it because I'm just thinking now, like, so basically everything else is just questionable. It's a questionable sin, but having a baby is a sin. So is this the image that she's giving me of her? Like, I don't want to just paint it too quickly now because, like I said, this is the first video that I'm actually reacted to of her. So I don't want to just paint the picture too quickly. At the same time, so having kids is a sin, but everything else, infidelity, murder, all of that is not. Okay.
Nearly 400,000 couples get divorced in this country each year. And I'd like to get your views on the cause and possible prevention of this problem. We'll get Mrs. Sanger's answer to that question in just 60 seconds.
One look at this cabin cruiser, and you know it's new. One puff of this cigarette, and you know it's new. It's Philip Morris, and you know by the taste. Philip Morris tastes natural, and that's why smokers like it. And they like the man's kind of mildness in Philip Morris. No filter, no fooling. Nothing artificial between you and the tobacco itself. And the box, here's something else smokers like. It's practical, crush-proof. If you haven't smoked a Philip Morris lately, get with it. You'll find a natural taste, a man's kind of mildness, a crush-proof box. Get with Philip Morris, probably the best natural smoke you ever tasted.
I'm gonna tell y'all why I'm laughing. I'm laughing because this was like the slowest commercial ever. And when I say slow, I mean like the tempo, like the speed of it. He was just talking like so relaxed and just like he was just sounding like just so relaxed and just so like he could do ASMR, like just the way the whole commercial was going is just, you know, it's crazy to see commercials from back then, way before my time, my mama's time, because she was not born in the 1940s. I don't know if this came out in the 1940s, 50s, or when in particular. My mom was born in 1960, so I could be off, y'all. Don't be yelling at me now.
Get with Philip Morris in regular pack or crush-proof box, probably the best natural smoke you ever tasted. Now then, Mrs. Sanger, there are nearly 400,000 divorces or annulments in America each year. What, and this is hard to do in the short time, of course, that we have, what would you recommend to cut down our divorce rate?
Well, as a great many of our clinics are including in the work that they do in birth control clinics, having marriage counseling. So when the woman or the man come and complain of their marriage on the skids, we invite them to come and have special talks with some of our psychiatrists.
Sorry, I'm looking up
or others who are making a study of that all over the country, where we have about 500 clinics. They almost all include marriage counseling and marriage erection.
May I ask you this? Could it be that women in the United States have become too independent, that they've followed the lead of women like Margaret Sanger by neglecting family life for a career? Let me quote from your biography describing your second marriage to Noah Slee.
Oh, so how many times she been
Quote,
married?
in New York, Mrs. Sanger maintained every clause of their compact of independence. They had separate apartments, they telephoned each other for dinner or theater engagements, or passed notes back and forth. Would you call this a sound formula for marriage, Mrs. Sanger?
Different people, yes. It certainly was for me and for my husband. We had a very happy marriage consulting. He had different friends than I had. And I don't believe in forcing, after all, we were two adults, and forcing your friends on another person who may have an entirely different outlook. It worked out very well.
I know that it did. You have two sons. One final question. You have two sons. How many children have they?
Would you like to see them?
I would indeed.
As well as
How many children? That's 6 in this family?
5 boys and a girl in that family.
And in the other family?
2 girls.
2 girls. Miss Sanger, I thank you so much for taking time out and coming and talking to us here this evening.
And Mr. Wells, I've never smoked, but I'm going to begin to take up smoking and use Philip Morris as the cigarette for me to take.
Well, I thank you very much, Mrs. Sanger.
That was her way of giving a joke compliment.
In the eyes of some, Margaret...
Or to acknowledge the commercial.
Sanger has been a heroine. In the eyes of others, she's been a destructive force. The purpose of this interview has been not, of course, to try to resolve this issue, but to open it to a little sensible discussion. This was done with the feeling that all of us, regardless of our beliefs, can do nothing but profit from a free exchange of ideas. I'll bring you a rundown on next week's interview in just 60 seconds or so. These few seconds at the end of the interview are among the most enjoyable of the week for me, for much as I enjoy smoking during the interview.
Are you going to puff it this time?
I believe I enjoy this cigarette most right now. Of course, Philip Morris is easy to enjoy. The taste is natural. There's mildness here, too. Today's Philip Morris has what I call a man's kind of mildness. There's no filter, no fooling, no artificial mildness, because there is nothing between you and the tobacco itself. Which is why I say, get
if
with
you're going to keep
Morris.
talking about cigarettes, then I'm about to end it right here.
Smoke you ever tasted. Next week, bye.
All right, y'all. Yeah, so we gonna end that video right there like that. Why am I using this when I got a whole mouse? I be forgetting. I don't really care to hear him talk about cigarettes. I'm not a cigarette smoker, but no judgment to those who smoke cigarettes. That's what y'all do. More power to you. It's just not my preference. But I was laughing because first video he would keep holding the cigarette, but I didn't see him puff it. But it wasn't until somewhere in the video, the first part, where I think I seen him put it to his mouth, but he was like, his back was like turned, and we was looking at Margaret, and he put it to his mouth, and I don't know if he really puffed it for real or not, but they was advertising the heck out of these Philip Morris cigarettes, and he wasn't even smoking it. But okay. But that video was pretty interesting to see her thoughts and stuff. Like I got a little glimpse into how she think a little. You know, I know this is just barely scratching the surface and there's so much more that I don't know. But I am very open to discovering and understanding. Hearing this and hearing that, it's nice to hear, you know, about something that is still going on in this day and age, you know, birth control, Planned Parenthood. So I'm very interested just being a woman in general. And, you know, like, I just want to know. But anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this reaction video just as much as I enjoyed reacting to it. Comment down below, y'all. Give me more things that you guys would like to see me react to on this channel. It can be whatever. I like to interact with you guys in the comments, so go ahead, comment down below. Also, guys, don't forget to thumbs up this video, like it up. And as always, it's a pleasure. I appreciate you guys for coming through and coming to kick it with me. And on the way out, guys, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button and ring that bell. Why do I keep doing this with my hands? I'm trying to make it sit still. But don't forget to hit that red subscribe button, y'all, and ring that bell. So when I drop a new video, you guys will know. You won't miss it. You will be right here. So until next time.